You know that feeling, right? You're at work, there's a big new initiative, maybe a new software system or a huge reorg, and it just feels doomed from the start. Well, you are definitely not alone. So many of these big corporate change efforts crash and burn. And it's usually not about a lack of money or planning. Today, we're going to unpack a much smarter, way more human approach to making change actually stick. In this quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? All consultancy garbage. This comes straight from a leader who was just fed up. Fed up with the old school change management playbook. You know the one. It's full of these complicated charts, super rigid steps, and a ton of acronyms that mean absolutely nothing to the people who have to do the actual work. It's this deep feeling that these top-down processes are, well, yeah, garbage. Okay, so if the old way is broken, what's the alternative? What actually works? How do we get past just managing a project plan and start, leading a real human transition? That is the big question, and that's exactly what we're going to get into. All right, so here's the fundamental problem, the reason why so many good intentions fail. It's really a case of mistaken identity. For years, we've been treating change like it's a logical, process-driven thing, but it's not. At its core, it is a human behavior problem. You see, companies pour millions into these super detailed plans, and they still fail. Why? Because they completely ignore the messy, emotional, and yes, sometimes irrational reality of how we as people actually respond to something new. And this right here, this contrast really says it all. Over on the left, you've got the old way. All these process-heavy models, you've probably heard of some of them, like Cotter's 8 Steps or AID-CAR. They're all about the what and the how of the plan. But look at the right side. That's the new way. It's focused on behavior. It's about the who and the why. These frameworks, things like the Kubler-Ross change curve, they're not from business school. They're from psychology. They get that for any change to actually work, you have to win over hearts and minds. You can't just check off boxes on a list. So what this really calls for is a huge shift in how we think about this stuff. Success isn't hiding in a better Gantt chart or a more detailed project plan. No. It's found in actually understanding what makes people tick. It's way less about project management and a whole lot more about something called behavioral engineering. Behavioral engineering. It sounds kind of complex, but it's actually a really simple and powerful idea. At its heart, it's just the science of making the right thing to do the easy thing to do. So instead of constantly pushing against all that resistance, you just redesign the environment. You change the situation so that people naturally want to move toward the new way of doing things. You're basically designing for success from the get-go. Okay, that's the theory, but how do we make it practical, right? Well, there's this absolutely brilliant metaphor from the book Switch that breaks the whole challenge of change down into 3 simple parts: the rider, the elephant, and the path. And let me tell you, this framework is a total game changer. First up, let's meet the rider. Think of the rider as the logical, rational part of your brain. It's the planner, the part of you that loves data, clear goals, and a good step-by-step plan. So to lead the rider, you have to give it crystal clear direction. Ambiguity is its mortal enemy. Seriously, if the rider doesn't know exactly where it's going and why, it'll just spin its wheels, analyzing things forever and never actually moving. Then there's the elephant. And this is our emotional, instinctual side. It is powerful. And honestly, it's usually the one in charge, even when we think our rational rider is. The elephant isn't moved by logic. It's moved by feeling. You cannot convince a 6-ton elephant with a spreadsheet. It's just not going to happen. To get the elephant moving, you have to connect on an emotional level. It needs to feel why the change matters. And here's the kicker. When the rider and the elephant disagree on which way to go, that 6-ton elephant wins every single time. And finally, we have the path. The path is everything around you, the environment. It's the processes, the tools, the company culture, the whole shebang. Because think about it. Even if your rider knows exactly where to go and your elephant is totally motivated to get there, they're still going to stumble if the path is full of potholes and roadblocks. So your job as a leader of change is to shape that path, to make the journey as smooth and easy as you possibly can. So how does this all play out in the real world?
Let's take this framework and apply it to something that's notoriously difficult. A classic, tough change. Rolling out a brand new enterprise resource planning system, an ERP system, across a huge global chemical company. We're talking super complex. It affects literally everyone, and it is just screaming for resistance.
Okay, first things first, we have to direct the writer. So put yourself in an employee's shoes for a second. The rational brain is firing off questions. What exactly is changing for me and my day-to-day job? Why are we doing this now? What does success even look like when this is done? And most importantly, what specifically do you need me to do? If you don't answer those questions with absolute, undeniable clarity, the writer gets confused and you get stuck in analysis paralysis.
But, a logical plan is only half the battle. What about the elephant? What about all that anxiety, the fear, maybe even anger that comes with a massive change like this? That's the emotional journey. So how do we motivate that big emotional elephant when all it wants to do is stay right where it is, where everything is comfortable and familiar?
Well, it turns out people follow a pretty predictable emotional roller coaster during a big change. It usually starts with denial. Nah, this won't really affect me. Then that often turns into anger. This is the worst idea ever. That might be followed by some bargaining. Okay, maybe we can just change this one little part of it. As a leader, your job isn't to stop these feelings. You can't. Your job is to expect them, to validate them, and to help guide that elephant through the storm until it reaches the other side. Acceptance. And last but not least, we have to shape the path. The goal here is simple. Make it easier for people to adopt the new ERP system than to keep fighting it. And that means real, practical stuff, like great hands-on training, not just a boring manual. It means having a help desk that is, actually helpful. It means trying to make the new software as user-friendly as you can. And this is a big one. You have to find and celebrate those small, early wins. Shine a spotlight on the people who are making it work. That builds momentum and shows everyone else that this new path isn't just possible, it's actually better. And this is where it all clicks into place. You see, the writer, elephant, and path framework, that's your overall strategy. And all those behavioral models we talked about at the beginning, those are your tactics. You use a model like Gilbert's to give the writer that clarity it craves. You use the Kubler-Ross curve to help you navigate the elephant's emotional journey. And you use Bridges' transition model to help you shape the path. All of a sudden, those things aren't just consultancy garbage anymore. They become really powerful, essential tools inside a framework that's actually built for humans. So, what does this all boil down to? It means that if you want to lead change that actually works, you need to think about your role differently. It requires a pretty deep shift in identity. You have to stop thinking of yourself as a project manager whose job is to just push a plan forward. And you need to start thinking of yourself as a behavioral engineer whose job is to design an environment where people want to move forward on their own. Look, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this right here. Successful, lasting change is not a process you manage. It's not a checklist you force on people. It's a behavior that you have to understand, that you have to motivate, and that you have to guide. That's the secret sauce. So, the next time you're facing a new project, the next time you have to lead a change, big or small, I want you to pause. Don't just reach for the project plan. Ask yourself these 3 questions. How am I going to direct the writer? How am I going to motivate the elephant? And how am I going to shape the path? Because if you can answer those questions, that's how you lead change that actually sticks.